To the San Benito County LAFCO regular meeting, May 9th, 4 p.m. Calling it to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Curro,
Here.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Here.
Commissioner Jordan,
Here.
Commissioner Bencourt,
Here.
Commissioner Casey.
Here.
Thank you. Pledge of Allegiance, Commissioner Curro. Thank you. Approve affidavit of posting of the agenda. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. May I have
Second.
a second? Thank you. Commissioner Gonzalez, and Commissioner Casey, may I have or all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Public comment. Is there any, do we have any public comment?
Yes, if you'd like to make a comment in chambers, please provide a speaker card, and on Zoom, please press *9 or the raised hand icon. I do have Alex Siwa in chambers.
And this is for items that are not on the agenda.
So, 3
Can you-
months ago, we...
I'm sorry, can you please state your name for the record?
Alex Siwak.
Thank you.
S-Y-W-A-K. And we were on the consent possible agenda back in February. And about a week before, it was noted that the current tax sharing agreement between the county and the city only applies if the city initiates the annexation by resolution. We applied by petition because we were told by the city planning department that they would not approve any annexation because the general plan is currently being revised or prepared. We dealt with the city attorney, and the city attorney said we could apply by petition, which we did. We talked to Mr. Mirioni from the city manager. He said, or at least my understanding was, he thought there was no issue from the city side with the formula for the tax sharing agreement. I met with Mr. Espinoza and Mr. Prado about a week or two after that, and they said that the county does have a problem with the current tax sharing agreement. They would support the application of it to AL annexation, and maybe in the next year or two, the county would initiate a restructuring of the current tax sharing agreement. I've been calling people. I've come to the Board of Supervisors meeting. I'd like to know where things stand. We're totally an island. We're between the easterly margin of the R.O. Hardin School and Powell Street. It's roughly 8 acres. We have a tentative map prepared. We're using the density bonus law as the basis of the application. We're incorporating a child care facility in it. And we just, you know, what are we supposed to do? We can't go to the county and ask for development there. We've been working on this thing for years. We would like to get it resolved somehow or other. So I'm here to get possibly an update, or at least ask how we can get an update. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
I have no other public comment.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Jennifer, isn't it one of our mandates to get the islands out of the city?
Yes, it is one of the aims of LAFCO to eliminate islands that are substantially surrounded by the city. In this case, because the issue is between the city and the county, I can provide a reminder that there is a timeline that should be abided by. Technically, there's 60 days, but with an extension up to 90 days to complete that negotiation. So because this occurred in February, that would be March, April, May, we're at that 90-day time frame, just about. So I will send a reminder to both the city and county that needs to be completed. And what I need from each one is a resolution approved by the boards, by the city council and by the board.
Can the property owner, bring an initiative before this body? Before any of that? I mean, then after that, then that's up to the individual to go
Yes.
forward
So
with.
in this
And those are the
case,
costs.
an application's already been submitted to LAFCO, but in order for LAFCO to consider the application complete, we have to have the tax sharing agreement. And then it can't be considered by LAFCO until the application is complete. So that's the sticking point.
And we really can't have a discussion on this because it's not agendized.
Okay.
So we can agendize it for next month, although it's over the 90 days.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Item 5, business items, general business, non-hearing items. Approval of the minutes of April 11th, 2024 regular meeting. May I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner Curro and Commissioner Gonzalez, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Are there any public comments on the minutes?
If you'd like to make a comment in chambers, please provide a speaker card. And I have no public comment.
Thank you. Seating of special districts on LAFCO.
Okay. So we just held a workshop for about an hour and a half, and there were approximately 10 people in attendance from those special districts. We had a combination of staff and governing body members that participated. There was a lot of good feedback. We do still have a couple of people in attendance that may speak to this issue, but I think generally I felt the reception was positive regarding the possibility of special districts being seated on LAFCO. And I know several of the commissioners were also in attendance, so you can speak to what you heard. So in front of you today, you have a letter of invitation to consider that would be sent along with a resolution for the districts to consider for adoption, and that would be kind of, in essence, a vote on whether the districts would like to join LAFCO. If we receive 5 out of the 9 resolutions back approved, then districts would be seated. I think one of the concerns that was indicated at the workshop was the funding, and I included the district allocation estimates in your packet. That is based on, there's a couple of unknowns, a couple of districts that are a little bit different than what they were in fiscal year 2021 when I got that information. But it gives you a roundabout idea of what each district would be obligated to provide on a year-to-year basis generally. As you can see, the healthcare district has a substantially higher contribution than the other districts, and that was one concern that was brought up. We did discuss alternatives to the funding structure in the code. There is flexibility. The commission has flexibility. It must be 50-50 county and cities if there are no special districts. If special districts are seated, then the formula is 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, unless there is some other agreement in place, and that would be up to the commission to decide. So something you may want to consider today is whether you want to consider an alternative funding structure. Maybe if 1/3 is too high or too much of detriment to the districts, then maybe 1/5 might be considered or something along those lines. Because the cities and county fund LAFCO, it would be up to them to make that decision. But just remembering that without the districts, you'd still be on the hook for the 100% of the budget. So even at a discounted rate, it's still a benefit. So I guess I'll leave it at that. If you have any questions.
I have
let me
a
know.
question. If I wasn't able to attend because I was out of town, but I'm just curious, you said 10 people attended. How many districts were actually represented from the different groups?
I went ahead and took their head count. So we had Hazel Hawkins, which is the Samuel County Healthcare District. We had Aromas Water District. We had Sunny Slope Water District. The Conservation District. I can't think of
Resource conservation.
Thank you.
Yep.
The Resource Conservation District were present in addition to Mr. Sturgey. Sturgey, he was here. But of that, there were 10 bodies, but those were the entities that were in the room. It was indicated, but for some reason, San Benito County Water District was not able to attend, which was the other one main district.
Thank you.
So it would be 4 of the 9 that would be voting.
And Madam Chair, if I may,
Go ahead.
I just kind of had a little gripe as to how the meeting was scheduled and arranged. I had to change around my schedule to be able to attend the meeting that happened at 2 o'clock, and I personally felt like I was discouraged of being here in person, and so I tried to get the Zoom information, and at 2 o'clock I did not have it, so I raised the alarm, called Devin, and made sure Devin Pack was here for the hospital, since his entity, his organization, was going to be carrying the brunt of the finances should this have gone through. But as LAFCO commissioners, we need to be included in everything, not just a second thought. And then I know that we had some comments from the public speakers who attended the meeting that they couldn't hear, and I experienced the same thing as when a question was asked, because we didn't use this format system and there was a microphone that was being used, you could not hear the community's participation, their questions. And so what you heard is you heard the moderator making a comment, and then there was a series of silence, and then there was a response to whatever the comment that was being made. So, and I know there was some hope that maybe this meeting was recorded, and I know that it wasn't recorded. But just going on in the future, please include all of the LAFCO commissioners in the invitation, the Zoom invitation. I personally prefer in-person meetings as opposed to Zoom, because of the frustration I had trying to get on. But I just came down here anyways to be part of it. But beyond that, it was a great conversation. It was great to hear the districts express their interest in wanting to be part of it. I can't say how the other 4, the 9 might vote, but the 4 that were here, we're talking, the 5 were here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 that were here, they were mentioning that they need time to go back to their board and discuss to make sure that this is the path that they want to go. But I think it's an awesome opportunity for inclusion from the district. I think this is something we need to go ahead and pursue, and I think we should go forward with the invitations, the letter of invitation.
Thank you.
Jennifer, I know right now we have this county pays 50% of the budget, and the city of Hollister pays 47%, and the city of San Juan pays a third, or 3%, excuse me, of the budget. And why is that? I mean, how is that arrived at this juncture with 5 people aboard?
So government code requires that when there's no special districts, it's 50% to the county, and 50% to all cities. And then the allocation amongst the cities is based on their revenues. So because the city of Hollister has substantially more revenues than the San Juan Bautista,
I
they
guess my
carry more
question
of it.
is then, can we do the same thing with special districts?
You have the option of coming up with a different funding arrangement, yes. Right now, it's very similar, in that it would be 1/3 county, 1/3 the cities, and then 1/3 the special districts, and the special district apportionment is based on revenues also.
And who decides that? The special districts?
That's based on government code. But the government code determines that there's the option for an alternative funding structure.
But
Explore that.
this body doesn't have any, vote on the process of, special districts, is that correct? I mean, who gets on it, apparently the funding too, is that correct?
Well, the funding, the commission could determine they want an alternative structure. If they wanted to only ask for 1/5 instead of 1/3, they could do that. It would be up to the special districts to determine who would be representing them. So that's
Okay.
correct. The commission would not be appointing
But
somebody from
we,
the special district.
as LAFCO, do not have any, say on who gets those two or two votes, correct?
Correct.
That's by the districts, okay. I just wanna make sure that the districts understand that too, because boy, in the beginning, I didn't understand all of this.
Mhm.
Then you and I in a private conversation, I think should be brought up about how, the voting goes on who gets the vote and how that's decided, whether they can have the vote forever or
Oh, the election for the
voting members.
voting members.
Right.
So I would conduct the election, and it could be either in person or by paper ballot. So first, the districts would have the option to nominate individuals from their own district if they wanted to for the LAFCO seats. And then amongst those nominees, all of the districts would vote who they want as their 2 regular members and the 1 alternate.
The other question I got is, there's 5 members in each one of those, board members or whatever they call themselves. So those 5 members would nominate Joe Blow district, but they would be picking off of a ballot, is that correct?
So they could nominate anyone at first off of their
Okay.
board. It would have to be somebody from their board. And from that point, after nominations, we would have a list of names, and all of those names would be sent to all of the districts, and each board would vote on those names.
But what I'm trying to get at is those 5 members of the 9 people would select, after they got the nominees, those 5 people would say, I want so-and-so to be represented. But that has to be a majority vote by those 5 members?
Yes. So the entire governing body, yes, the 5 members would vote.
So that one district would have one vote, right?
Right, as to
Okay.
who would be the representatives.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay, I think I understand it now.
Can I clarify, would that be a vote for two since there's two representatives?
Yeah, it would
So
be a vote
each
for
governing
two.
body would get the list of nominees that were voted by each of those governing bodies. And that ballot would go to each governing body and they would get to vote for two that they vote for representation.
Plus an alternate.
Plus an alternate, right. And then, just to clarify, the special districts have the ability to, amongst themselves, make a determination if they want to have a specific district representing more often, or is that a legislative action that would have to be, you know, so like, if the healthcare district is paying the majority of it, we discussed this a little bit, the healthcare district is paying the majority, shouldn't they be eligible to have one of those seats ongoing? That's a conversation between the special districts, not us.
Correct.
I
The
just-
special districts would need to come to that agreement if that's what they desired. Some LAFCOs have it in legislation. I don't know that it would need to go to that extent if all of the districts had come to an agreement on their own.
And there'd be some sort of documentation of these
Right.
agreements to be able to document,
Right.
for you to be able to have something to stand on in the future.
Mhm.
As we know, our past documentation has not been the best, sorry about that.
I got a question. Once that happened, it's a done deal, no matter what, maybe we don't like who they voted on, or,
It's a democratic
No,
process.
that's why I'm here, 'cause y'all didn't like, just kidding.
well, I'm serious.
There's
I
no
mean,
giving them the boot. Mm-mm.
Yeah,
They
no.
serve
Done
at the
deal.
will.
Yeah.
Like a marriage.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay,
Yeah, like our individual jurisdictions chose us,
okay.
yeah,
I see.
whether y'all liked it or not.
So I have a question along those lines, and it's
And
not
is
because I
that
think
for a
it would
four-
happen, but, so we do this and we do get two more members, and then for some reason it's just really messy and not working. What options do we have? Can we just change it, or is it
We dissolve
stuck?
ourselves?
I mean, do we, can we take it back? No, just kidding. I'm just curious how that works.
You know, I have never heard of that happening, so I don't know.
So it
I
has a
would
good
have
rep,
to
so.
look into it.
We'll just have to practice it. Can't we all just get along kind of
Right?
mentality
Yeah,
from the
it would-
get-go?
I think so.
Right? Would it
Mhm.
not be any different than all of us up here?
Mhm.
There would just be two others sitting up here with us,
Correct.
and, yeah, whether we all got along or not.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm just curious. I mean, if it can be undone once it's done or not. So.
Just kidding, we
Any-
don't want you here. Thank you very much, have a nice day.
Do we have Josh on the line? Do you happen to have an answer on if it could be undone if special districts are seated?
To my knowledge, it cannot be undone, but that's something I would need to double check. I've never seen it undone, and my understanding of the government code, Jennifer, is similar to yours, that it's an opt-in, and once it's opted in, that's that is the way it is going forward.
Madam Chair, Josh, can I add to the question, when it comes to the LAFCO board or commission making the determination whether we, reduce the 1/3, we are not responsible, because we are a separate entity wearing separate hats, we do not have to go back to our governing bodies and ask for permission to change that percentage, that 1/3. So if we went down to 1/4 or 1/5, like you said, if we did that from this level, I'm thinking you see, you could go back to your bodies and you're like, what are you doing? You just gave up money that could have helped us. I mean, I'm trying to chase the rabbit all the way down the hole.
Well, fiscally, the cities and the city and the county would have less of a share to have to pay, because right now, we're doing the 50-50.
Yes, but if we reduce the 1/3 down to 1/5, we aren't getting as much as they would have had in a savings, and I don't want that to come back and bite any of us. I just want to have the conversation. I'm not saying
Yeah.
I support or oppose it. I just want to make sure legally, Josh, This body makes that decision, and the other bodies that we come from do not have any say.
Right, so, question, there's 9 special districts, and we keep talking about 5, but 5 is the majority to bring all 9 in, so that 1/3 will be divided between all 9, similar to how the 50 is between San Juan Bautista and the city of Hollister. So why would we even think of going down to 1/5 when they have 9 jurisdictions to go in on it?
Can I comment on that?
Yeah.
Do you mind if I comment on that?
No, comment away.
Because if you're one jurisdiction and you're a special district and you're spending 64,200, and this isn't gonna be exact, 64,292 out of the 81,988, you're looking at 78+% going on one special district.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you made too much money this year.
I agree. That's really a nice way of thinking of it.
Thank you.
But
And Tres Pinos, who is this big, is only paying $7.
right.
Not unlike how the city of Hollister pays 47% and the city of San Juan Bautista pays 3%. I mean, I am the biggest proponent in why isn't San Juan at any table, and thank God we're not sometimes. I mean, I don't know how else to say that.
Well, I just know from the comments from the workshop, that was one of the comments, of course. And looking at that, but also looking at how representation from special districts could be such a knowledge source. And what I felt today, and it's the first time I've felt it, because I've worked with these special districts in the election world for a long time, and there's not been a lot of sharing of information and unity in information. What I saw today was, wow, we're gonna get other elected bodies to start working together and talking together about things that really matter in our community, instead of being isolated little islands, no pun intended there, but isolated islands thinking that it's only about them. It's really about our community as a whole. And so what I liked was seeing, wow, we have some leadership. I mean, first of all, the Resource Conservation District, I was shocked to see the representation from such a small...
3 people,
Yeah, 3 people came from one small little jurisdiction that has no revenue at this time. Well, they do.
Actually, it sounded like they were
They
doing
do.
pretty
They're
well
doing,
right now.
the last 2 years, they've done better than they have in the past. But my whole point of this is broadening the knowledge and the opinion of our community. If nothing else has been seen in this last election cycle, and what's coming before us in this next election cycle, is that our community is extremely diverse and opinionated at huge areas. And I'm doing something that with my hands that I told people not to do. Don't gesture with your hands, but we're really broad left and right of where, not just in politics, but in the belief of our community. And this body has, even though we're not the zoning and, the general plan, which I think is the hardest part of the entire job, but this body has a way of bringing people together and having some tough conversations. And I think adding special districts to that conversation is invaluable, in my opinion.
Absolutely, I agree with that.
And so if we have to give a little to have that diversity so it can pencil out for them, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how you feel about this. I like the third. It keeps it easy, it keeps it clean, but I'm trying to put myself on the other side of the table or counter and say, well, from their perspective, how fair is that when the city's paying the lion's share of the city portion, but it's based on a number that is documented. It's not based on population, it's based on basically where your revenue is.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Curro, you had gave us a good example in the workshop regarding what Santa Clara did, in terms of how they had their representation from the district. Can you share that with the board and whoever might be listening to
Well,
for the
my
record?
understanding with Santa Clara County, and this is really old information, but that's why I looked it up because I was like, I remember when something like this happened when I was in Santa Clara. There was a lot of talk about this. But they actually passed legislation where a specific district always got a seat because, and I think, in my opinion, it was because of the amount of money that jurisdiction was going to have to pay. And so they wanted a seat. Now, could the special districts, if they unite in this decision or not, and the majority of them say yes, they have the five, and then they decide amongst them that they want representation to be consistent from one jurisdiction, that they can vote to have that one jurisdiction always have a seat, and then maybe rotate the seat, and it's a 4-year term is my understanding. So you could have one that's always coming from that jurisdiction. I'm going to just say it, hospital district. And then the other remaining 8 districts would vote and rotate who gets to do the second seat, and the alternate, of course. But that's an option that the special districts can do amongst them. And I think that conversation kind of was open, the people in attendance today were open-minded of that.
And that decision would lie with us in terms of how we, how we apportion the fees that the district would pay.
No,
right?
because no, that's done based on their revenue.
So then we'd be looking at the 1/3 if
So
we did it that way?
We're
the
1/3 or we go lower, but we cannot make any decisions about what the special districts do amongst themselves.
Right, and so, without having any special language in there, revenue doesn't necessarily, mean you have a seat at the table. If I have a higher revenue, I might not get in. If I'm San Benito Resource Conservation District, according to this, without their current numbers, they have no monies to put in here. They could have a seat at the table. Okay. So it doesn't, money doesn't matter
Right. From a voting perspective.
from
no.
having a seat at the table.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted that to be clear, that part of it, that they have authority amongst them to make some decisions.
Right, and we have none.
And we have none.
Correct.
And so if we say I kind of feel like it's kind of a leap of faith, that they're going to work together and listen to each other and make the right decision and come back with either we're voting, yep, no, we don't, we've decided we can't do this, we can't make this happen, we can't come to an agreement, so everybody votes no, that they're not going to join, or they come up with an arrangement that works for them and they get the votes to be able to join. I mean, that's what I kind of see happening,
So
or options of happening.
part of the conversation at the workshop was that we vote to, either we vote or we don't vote today to make it happen, and it either goes through or it dies today.
Table it.
No, isn't that just for sending a letter out? Aren't we voting on whether or not we're gonna send a letter now?
To send the invitation, another part of that conversation is, are you okay with keeping the formula as stated, or do you want to adjust the funding formula?
I would like to adjust the funding formula because I think by the participants in the room, they appreciated the willingness that we had the power to adjust that 1/3 percentage that was being divided up between the 9 districts.
Do we have that authority, or do we have to take that back to our jurisdictions?
And
That was
that's
the question to Josh.
Yeah, so, I just wanted to clarify that. So
Okay.
if we are gonna
Just reiterate,
reduce,
sorry,
or
Josh,
reduce the special
I-
district share of funding to something less than 1/3, that does require in a majority of the cities, excuse me.
Okay, so it does have to go back to the governing bodies to
That's why I
approve
was
that.
concerned with.
Yeah. And why we would have to, if you desire to do that, you'd have to go back to your governing bodies and have that approved before sending the letter of invitation out, so that the special districts would know what they were voting into. So that would be a reason for tabling it if you did decide to go with an alternate funding structure.
So you're saying in order to go with the alternate funding, but not in order to get their way in on special districts being added.
I don't think that they would vote if they didn't know what their funding requirements would be.
I mean,
So-
the city and the county going back to get the okay, they're just getting an okay on money, not on whether they want added.
Correct.
So, okay. All
Right, so we would decide right now if we want to lessen those fees down to 1/4 or 1/5, and then table the sending of the letter until the following month when we are all having this conversation with our own jurisdictions to say, hey, do we want to put in a little bit more to allow special districts to come in and pay a little bit less? And then in June, we're live in June. In June, we would all come back and say, yes, we all agree that we're gonna pay a wee bit more, and then send the letter to invite special districts to come in. And then special districts vote, in August, July or August, however they work. They vote in July or August whether to join us. If they have 5 or greater votes, then they're in at whatever rate structure we decide, right? Did I capture that well enough?
Right.
Can I
there would be-
clarify rate structure when you say what,
1/3.
the 1/3 or the 1/5 or the 1/4?
Yes.
Right, okay.
Yes.
that-
Right.
yes.
So in September, conceivably, we can all have, we will have special districts.
I don't
September,
know if a
October.
vote process would go that quickly. I put an aim of January 1, just
That's
to make it an
perfect.
easy
Yeah,
half-half, so then 50% of the budget maybe.
yeah, go ahead.
I got, right now, the city and the county, if we get special districts coming in, you guys gonna pay 1/3 less to your constituent, correct?
That's correct, unless
So if
we
you-
ask to go to our bodies and make that a different number, so that it's more appealing to the special districts.
Okay, but if you go 1/5, that means the 2 cities, and they get a little bit too, it'd be 1/5 less that we have to put in, right? So, I don't understand why you have to go.
It's
Back to
politics,
your-
that's all I'm gonna say. It's
And if I may interject regarding the topic of politics, I would like to see this resolved before the end of the year, because at the beginning of the year, you have a new body taking over in terms of supervisor status, city council members, and we might be a different board that may not be on this table and this place and time that we are, where we're all in sync at the moment.
And I think what Jennifer's saying is they would actually, if it passes this year, and they would take office. The appointments would happen at the beginning of the year, so it will be resolved based on what Jennifer said this year.
Is that correct?
Correct, yes. So they would be seated January 1 to
Okay,
start.
okay, good, that was my hope, okay, good,
Okay.
okay.
So just to give you an idea of the difference that we're talking about, right now, at the current budget for this fiscal year, the county put in 122,982. At a third, that would be 81,988. If they decided to, or you approved a maybe 1/5 budget for the districts, the payment by the county would be $98,362.
It's still a good savings.
Yeah, so, there's still savings, and then that's similar on the city side. It would just be a portion between Hollister and Solid
And you're not
Waste
gonna give us those numbers right now, are you?
I couldn't quickly do that.
While you're quickly
This was-
doing that.
I was doing the math just between the meeting
And we won't hold
now,
you to
so-
these specific numbers. Go ahead, do the city because.
Well, because we're gonna
yeah.
have to bring them back to our jurisdictions, and I mean, I could do the math, but if I had the math already
Madam
for
Chair, can
for the
I make
meeting
a-
next week,
I
that'd
can
be great.
send out a
That's where I was
sheet
going.
Thank
that
you
would
very
show
much.
all of
So
the
we all have-
options.
Real good numbers from Jennifer
Yeah.
instead of on the fly.
Yeah. For our respective meetings coming up
Right.
at a theater near us soon.
But just to give you reference, you know, if we're talking about what do you want to take back to your
So-
boards? 1/5, 1/4, I can calculate those really quickly, but we can
Right.
do-
So before we answer that question, can I go to public comment, please?
I do have one in Chambers, Devin Pack.
Hello, thank you,
Hi.
Commissioners. I am
Thanks
Devin
for
Pack.
welcome, Devin.
I serve on the San Benito Healthcare District. I have been in communication with our CEO, and our position is generally that the board would welcome the invitation to join LAFCO as a topic of discussion. That's the one thing I can say in an official capacity. Then, speaking only for myself, what I would say is that Hazel Hawkins is the largest employer in the city of Hollister and in the county. We are a vital component of the public services and healthcare infrastructure of this county, being the only hospital in this county. We have roughly 600 FTEs, full-time equivalents. One thing towards speaking only for myself and not for any other members of the board, but a different way of thinking about the alternate structure and the funding. $64,000, Commissioner Jordan, is the beginning salary of a phlebotomist or a medical technician or a relatively low-level and inexperienced nurse. The healthcare district, we have to think of every expenditure in terms of our mission of providing healthcare to the people of this county and to providing quality of service. And thus, while there is definitely an interest and a strong reason for our healthcare district to have a say on the board, there's also the matter of having to justify every expenditure as against the expenditure of hiring an additional person for our labs or for our ER or for our acute services. So therein has to be a part of the discussion, is that right now Hazel Hawkins is in a financially precarious position. We have been in the process of moving towards recognition of bankruptcy action, and we have to be very austere in our funding, and we have to be able to justify every participation and every expenditure against our core mission, which is providing healthcare services in this county. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I apologize if I sounded flippant. I totally understand all of that, which is not unlike any other jurisdiction or special district. We all have the same constraints. Yours just happens to be salary. Ours has to be budgeting for a city or a county. So we all have to rearrange our monies to figure out how to pay for whatever it is we're paying for as well. So my apologies if I sounded flippant. I just, we're all in the same situation except for the bankruptcy.
Actually, we're not all in the same place in that right now the cities and the county, or the cities and the county are paying that fee. And so our fee would decrease, and then there would be the onus and the responsibility that would go on the districts if we've got 5 out of the 9 to say they want to go forward. And I think Devin's just trying to make us aware of what the fiscal impact, the real impact is.
No,
Yeah.
I understand
so
that.
it's
A
really-
fee
it
is a
really
fee though, and we're all paying a fee. We're all paying to be in this special little boat that we're in. Do we have any other public comment?
I do not.
Thank you.
Can I ask another question?
Go ahead.
It might be a stupid question, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. I'm just looking down the list of districts, and it just struck me that school districts are not special districts, so they don't get any play here. Okay, just wanted to double check that.
And on top of that, we don't have any authority over them, over their boundaries, as LAFCO. That's one of the main reasons.
Gotcha.
Okay, I think the public comment, and fully understand, you know, I think where I'm coming from as a commissioner and not a board member, because, you know,
Because you're not.
as a board member, I am all about where can we save money. So yeah, but as a commissioner, where I'm coming from is having the price to have more options, education, experience, and community involvement, in my opinion, is worth its weight in gold on this commission. I have already told people I am a LAFCO geek. One day, Richard, don't laugh if I'm the person sitting there as the public person, because I like it so much that I just can't let it go. This is one of my things that I got into it years ago when I got into the clerk recorder's office. I had no idea what LAFCO was, and it's just kind of, you know, when you're in elections, you get the election bug and you can never leave it. It's the same thing for me with LAFCO. So what I see here is, one, the benefit of informed jurisdictions is, it outweighs the cost. So if we make a recommendation to reduce the amount because the benefit for the community is so great, that's really how I would pitch that to the Board of Supervisors as to why it's so important that we reduce the rate, is for the actual participation in voices, because the services that these special districts provide is very important, but also very expensive. And as our community grows, we need to hear from those special districts and hear how the growth is going to hurt them, so that real decisions can be made with as much fact-based information as possible. Sorry to get on my soapbox.
That's okay. I was just gonna agree with you. I think there's a huge community benefit in engaging more districts, so, you know, sometimes we do supplement costs when it benefits the community, and I'm perfectly okay with the 20%. I you know, I don't know how anybody else feels, but I think that's fine. So,
Yeah, I am too. I'm okay with doing that. I just want everybody to understand that, what I said earlier. But yeah, I think the more the merrier, and however we can get more input and more county collaboration, the better. And if reducing fees is the way that we're gonna go, then I'm absolutely all for that, and can support it bringing back to my jurisdiction.
Steve, you wanna go before me?
No, you go ahead. I'm good with the 20%.
As a public member, Angela, you you put it very well on how I feel about LAFCO. Also, I gotta remember, I'm the public member. You people put me here. My concern with LAFCO, I guess because of the elections and knowing the code as I do, I believe just what you brought up about, I'm concerned about LAFCO maybe becoming infiltrated by people that will not follow the rules. And my good friend sitting out there keeps me informed of how Santa Clara runs, and everybody, from what I understand, don't like going to LAFCO in Santa Clara County. I don't want to see this body be infiltrated by people that can't put their LAFCO hat on. So I am all for, and there again, I gotta go along with my fellow commissioners that are voting members, or voted members, because they have to, that's where the money's coming from. So, but I am truly for going forward with special districts. You know, I've already been out campaigning, and I got a lot of questions too. I always have a lot of questions because I always try to put myself on the other side. And anyway, that's my comment.
And I think later on when we discuss the handbook, that will help alleviate some issues with what hat we're supposed to be wearing at what particular time. Sorry, Commissioner Gonzalez?
Oh, no, I'm good. I agree with what has been shared already.
Okay.
As I said, we all have that spirit of bringing change and improvement to Latin.
Absolutely, and the more people we have here, the greater this whole entire county will be.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just make one comment? I want to thank our alternate because she planted this seed of the conversation. And so I think Elia needs to just realize that that seed we listened to and we appreciate it, and it sparked a really good conversation. I didn't even know that was a thing, you know, last year when I was chair. So it happened after the conference. So I like learning after the conference what this option could be for our community, and she planted that seed. So I just really appreciate that.
That's awesome. Thank you. So first, do we go down to a quarter or a fifth? All in favor for a quarter, show hands. All in favor for a fifth, show hands.
A fifth.
Okay, so we're gonna drop down to a fifth for the special districts. We're gonna bring it back to our own individual jurisdictions, and then come back next month with an answer on, so if you, Jennifer, you can get us those numbers, what each one will be spending, so we can have those conversations this month. And then in June, we'll come back with the question on whether or not we're gonna then move the letter forward. Or we can vote on the letter going forward now if we all come back, right? Or do you wanna hold off?
We can hold off. I wouldn't send it out until we had had determined what their
Okay.
financial obligations would be. But I can send an update, because we did have interest today, so they'll be wanting to hear about the outcome, provide an update that it will be considered at the June meeting
Perfect.
based on the funding arrangement. And I will also provide, I'll provide you that breakdown of the funding, but also resolution language to you and your
Appropriate to that. Okay. Perfect.
CAO
Thank you.
or city
Thank you.
managers.
Okay, so may I have a motion to approve inviting the independent special districts to join LAFCO at 1/5 of the cost?
So moved.
Second.
Before we vote on the whole thing, were we holding off on this?
We're just, right now, we are only voting on the fee schedule that we're gonna bring back to
that we'll
our-
bring back. Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, I just want to make sure we're not sending it until we get the fee schedule back.
Correct.
Gotcha, I'm with
All
you.
we're voting on is to approve inviting the districts to join at a 1/5.
Gotcha.
And then we'll bring it back to invite them and distribute the resolution and the new fee schedule. Okay.
Thank you for the clarification. My apologies.
My pleasure.
Madam Chair, but in that document, is she gonna put the one that we
Yes.
decided to lower
Yes,
to one okay.
yes. Okay.
But just so Richard is, Commissioner Betancourt is totally on board. That is after we come back with our resolutions from our jurisdictions
In June.
in June. Yep. I'm good.
Thank you.
Decision.
Thank you. So, 5-0 vote. Sorry. Do I need a roll call on this? Okay.
It's not a resolution, it's a.
Okay.
You do not,
All
Chair.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
My apologies. That was me asking too many questions after the second.
Yeah, nope, not a problem.
They're all good questions, though.
We got it. We're there. Thank you all who participated in the earlier session and for the comments made this afternoon. We appreciate you and look forward to having all of y'all join. All of y'all. update application processing fees, 5.3.
Okay, so this is the second time these application fees are in front of you. I think I originally brought them to you in March. I do know that a couple of alternates were seated that day, so it may be the first time for some of you. But today you'll be considering whether to approve these application fees based on the calculations that I did on how much time it takes staff to process each of the various types of applications. And that's as mandated in government code because we can only charge according to what it reasonably costs to provide the service. So, that being said, you have the spreadsheet and a resolution in front of you to consider these new application fees, and now they would go into effect July 1. So if you have any questions.
Thank you. Questions, comments, concerns from the commission?
First of all, I would like to make a comment, Madam Chair.
Mm-hmm.
I want to thank the alternates who came in. I was really impressed how up to date they were. I was really impressed. I want to make that clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Questions? Nothing? Perfect. Wow. Public comment?
If you'd like to make a comment in chambers, please provide a speaker card, and I have no one on Zoom, so no public comment.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion to adopt resolution number 2024-03, approving the updated application processing fees to be effective July 1st, 2024.
Second.
Oh, move to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Gonzalez and Commissioner
You got the second
Benford.
before you got the motion.
Uh,
She was asking, she was reading the agenda items.
Can I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Casey?
Yes.
Commissioner Curran?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner Bancourt?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Thanks, Jennifer. Discussion item of proposed edits to the San Benito LAFCO Commissioner Handbook and Administrative Policies.
So I hope you all had an opportunity to read all 43 pages in detail. Depending on the pace of how we go through the proposed edits, perhaps we might only make it through the first half of the handbook, and then we can discuss the second half at the next meeting if you desire. But we can just base that on time and the commission's desire. So what I plan to do is go through page by page, and I'll point out any relevant proposed edits that I've placed in here. This has also been reviewed by legal counsel as well to ensure that it's all consistent with law. One of the processes I do want to identify that I added the administrative policies here because that's just in essence what this already was. And many of the policies in here were duplicates from the policies and procedures manual that is a separate item. So in putting those here, and only here, I am proposing to remove those from the policies and procedures, and we'll make those application processing guidelines or policies separate from these policies. So they won't be in two different places and repetitive. So that's where some of the major content that was maybe added here might be that it was just drawn from policies and procedures. But I'll point those out as we go through. There were also some policies that were lacking or not even present. So I did add a few policies, generally taking language from Santa Clara LAFCO, and then a couple of my other LAFCOs were appropriate. So it's tried and true language at the very least. So going through and skimming, first of all, on the table of contents, you'll note that the LAFCO policy guidelines and standards, those would be incorporated into the other policies and procedures that I mentioned that we'll consider later. And the administrative supplement to CEQA, really not necessary. CEQA is very detailed in its requirements, so there's no reason that we need to outline further requirements in the policies. There is a need for legislative policies, so I added that in the table of contents. I did not add specific legislative policies; those are to be determined, but it's a placeholder for including those. Let's see here. Appendix A was factors to be considered by LAFCO in reviewing a proposal. Those are already in government code, so there's no reason to replicate them here. So I'm proposing to add the processing fee schedule for applications as part of this. Okay. Please feel free to ask questions as I go through this. It's several pages. So.
Yeah, if anybody has any questions, just chime in.
Let's see here. Page 1, very few minor edits, and page 2, the same, very minor edits. On page 3, I added this general section to identify, which LAFCO and under what authority you were formed and empowered to provide these the services that you do, as well as the mission. The mission is as it was on the website, so I don't know if you've ever had a chance to look at the mission, but this is what's on LAFCO's website right now. Okay, and moving on, role of the commissioner. Did not add anything there on page 4 or page 5. I did underline on page 5 just to provide emphasis on it. Any member appointed on behalf of local government shall represent the interests of the public as a whole and not solely the interests of the appointing authority.
I like that in light of Commissioner Betancourt's earlier comments.
Mm-hmm. So important to definitely emphasize
Yeah, but
that.
isn't that in the state code?
It is in the code.
So,
Some
whether it's in our handbook or not, that's policy, right?
Correct.
It's nice to see it iterated here, though,
Right.
because of concerns that people aren't turning their caps. Yeah.
I got a question
Mm-hmm.
under that sentence. What if one of us, I'm what ifing now, what if one of us commissioners are not doing that? Can we get sued personally?
I have never heard of that happening, but I wouldn't say it could never happen.
Can we remove them from the commission?
They would have to be removed by their respective agencies. So if it was a
Whoever
supervisor,
voted
they
them
would
in.
have to be removed by the county supervisors themselves.
And what I'm getting at is a lot of times we have these rules, but I don't see any teeth in them. So, if somebody just goes about not following the rules, there's there's no way for the body to remove them.
So would that not be a reflection of a vote? I'm choosing to go with San Juan and not the whole beneficial for the whole entire community, while all y'all are going for the whole entire community. It would be a 4-1 vote, and clearly I had my own jurisdiction in my mind.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so I think we would see that, and with conversation, polite and amicable conversation, we could either sway or not sway anybody to come about. But there's still, right now, there's still a 4-1 vote going. You're not doing anybody a favor with that vote, and it's kind of understood with.
But what if the commission is packed and it's 4-1 the other way? Of course, then again,
Yeah, that's
up
hard
to the body.
Yeah.
Right, I understand.
And we have to remember that Commissioner Betancourt has been here for a long time, and he has witnessed a lot.
Oh, absolutely. We had a
Pros and cons.
conversation my first year on the council about LAFCO, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Following that are the training requirements regarding ethics training, as well as harassment prevention, which I think is a newer requirement. And that the county and city council members will receive their training from their respective jurisdictions, and then LAFCO staff would advise public members of opportunities to receive the training.
Is that training provided at a LAFCO meeting, Cal LAFCO meetings?
Not Cal LAFCO. I do know individual LAFCOs that provide ethics training for anyone in the community that wants to attend. So they would bring their lawyer in to conduct the ethics training and invite anybody.
Okay, how does, off a little, how does the county do it? Yeah, because
With
the cities do League of Cities, they have their training at the League of
Well,
Cities.
that's a really great question because I wrote it down here.
Perfect, okay.
Well, the
moving right
reason why
along.
is we used to have it done by, we had, Trindell, I believe, did it for us.
Oh, okay.
And they stopped.
Okay.
Whoever was doing it stopped doing it. So my question I keep having is I believe I did it through an association. I believe it was CSAC that I did the training. And it lasts 2 years. But I understand that our council also does that training, and it may be something that we bring back to our board for a future conversation.
And currently, the way the county uses it, it's on your own. You know that every 2 years you need to renew, so you could do a self-paced course online to do the AB 1234.
Okay, so that might be something to say somehow, that anybody who hasn't received it, because the commissioner on the public side and the alternate on the public side will not have had it, so however LAFCO can provide it to them. If anybody else is up, LAFCO can do it for the commissioners.
I do know that the alternate commissioners and public member are up to date on their ethics training, right? You received it recently through the planning commission, or
We should be reminded,
yeah,
because
definitely.
tend to forget. It comes around real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And Ellie and I took it with the planning commission. That's how we got our.
Yeah, just as long as they're included in any commission or council or League of Cities or whomever to have that training, as long as they're included. Thank you.
Yeah.
Through the chair, the public member, let me see, 17, 7 years ago, was fighting for trying to get this back on so that the public member could have comments or part of the debate of any meeting. And also like the addition of the public member or the alternate being part of closed session.
I think we're
Thank you.
almost to that part. Okay. So we're on to page 7 now. Page 6, sorry, I
Six.
jumped down because I added a comment. Okay. On page 6.
Oh, I thought I
Uh,
had
Let's see here. Just a reminder about how a term will be filled if there is a vacancy, and the composition, which could change depending on what occurs with the special districts. But we could come back and edit that. Public members, let's see here. So the public members section, it defines how they'll be chosen by the city and county members. But the highlighted part is the appointees shall also not concurrently hold any elected or appointed office with a local government agency that makes or informs land use decisions while serving on the commission. This is an additional requirement, and so this would be up to the commission if you desire that to be included here or not. I am just purely proposing it because I think that as public members, they likely shouldn't also be taking part in those decisions somewhere else. I know, Josh, you had a point about this item.
Yeah, yeah, Jennifer, as you laid out for the commission, this really is a policy choice for you. So by law, a city council member or a county supervisor cannot be a public member of LAFCO. But that same prohibition by law doesn't apply to someone like a planning commissioner. So, an example of how this language would change that would be if we include the highlighted language, then a public member could not be a city planning commissioner or county planning commissioner.
Thank you. I like the addition.
Agreed. I like the addition.
I got a question for Josh. I can't remember what code it is, but it says that we don't have to identify ourselves, but yet again, you come over here, the city can't vote on annexing any of their anything into their city. They can't vote on that. Why is that?
So I apologize, Commissioner Bencourt, if I misunderstood the question, but under LAFCO law, unless we adopt a policy, the city and county members can vote on proposals that affect their jurisdiction. They may decide to recuse themselves in some instances, but unless there is a due process issue, which very rarely comes up, they generally can vote in those situations, unless there's a LAFCO policy to the contrary.
You're saying that they can, as a LAFCO member, vote for annexing something into their entity or their city?
Unless we as LAFCO adopt a policy otherwise, yes.
So like for the island that we keep hearing about, if it were an island in San Juan, as a LAFCO member, I can say, yes, absolutely, because LAFCO doesn't like islands. That's my job as a LAFCO commissioner.
Right.
I can go back as a council member and go, I don't want that in there. But as a LAFCO member, my job is to say yes.
Right.
Thank you. So, we're good with adding, this highlighted, portion under, he won't do that. C3, public members.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
5-0 on that one. Thank you.
Next
Carry
part,
on.
selection of public members. The code outlines that the selection is, the process for selection of the public members is up to the commission. This is just outlining a process for that selection, and also incorporates some of the requirements for filling the public member position, such as the notification. There needs to be noticing at least 21 days prior to selection of a public member, et cetera. So this is a combination of providing some structure to the process as well as codifying what's already in code, so everyone's aware of the requirements. Alternate members. For this part, this is where
Jennifer, what page are you on? I've lost you.
7.
7?
At the bottom of 7, it says alternate members.
Thank you.
Let's see here. So this is the part that Commissioner Betancourt was referring to, where we outline the role of the alternate member and ensure that the alternate member can take part in discussions at regular meetings and in closed sessions, with the idea that then they would remain informed and able to step in place of the regular member should the need arise. They may not vote or make a motion during that time that they are taking part as an alternate. Only when they replace the regular member are they able to do that. There was one issue about alternates attending and participating in closed session. Josh, do you want to speak to that?
Sure. There's an old Attorney General's opinion that dealt with whether alternate commissioners on LAFCO can attend a closed session when they're not sitting in place of a regular member. And the Attorney General determined that they could not because they did not have an official role in the closed session. Despite that opinion, any LAFCOs have a policy which allows their alternate to participate and feel that that decision was misplaced or misguided. I'm comfortable with the commission including this policy and allowing alternates to participate in closed session, but I wanted to raise that issue so the commission was aware.
Madam Chair, so I think, Jennifer, you and I have talked about this previously, that alternates, in your experience on other LAFCOs, this is a standard. Is that correct? Am I remembering our conversation correctly?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because I always feel like San Benito County is always just a little bit different on everything that we do.
Yes, in my experience, alternates are able to take part, like when the commission has discussion on each item, they take part in that discussion, not the public comment period.
So would it not behoove us to keep it like this if there were a closed session that were continued to the next month and a seated commissioner couldn't be there, the alternate would already have that knowledge? If they can participate in every other way, why would they not be able to participate in that way for the same reason?
And Chair, that's exactly why we think that the Attorney General's view of this was misguided for that reason.
Thank you. So we're all good with keeping that the alternates?
Yes.
I'm thinking. I'm just trying to, think, is there any reason why you wouldn't, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm not coming up with anything, so I think it should be fine.
Okay. We're all good? Okay, 5-0 to keep that.
The Brown Act exception, it's just to clarify, that there's not a Brown Act concern if, say, 3, supervisors showed up, because the alternate is participating as well. So it's not, it's more in the interest of, well, I would say, that as long as they're keeping the discussion LAFCO based, that it's not a Brown Act violation.
This? No, this could get, funky, but it won't, because ours is either city. For a second, I thought it could be a supervisor, and that would be 4 supervisors, but that's not. Yeah, no.
Right, so as you know, it says that you can't discuss amongst yourself, so it would just be in participation at the meeting.
So, Madam Chair, just to clarify, alternates, if you're having a discussion, and maybe this is an obvious, maybe this is a stupid question, but I don't know another way of putting it. If the alternates are participating in all of the meetings and having the voice, the Brown Act, you should not be talking to more than one voting member, but they could become the voting member if the other person, so if you're breaking the Brown Act if you've talked to another commissioner and an alternate, correct? Do I have that wrong?
Yeah, 'cause it's 3.
Because that would be 3, even though they aren't voting. If you talk to the alternate, you can't talk to another commissioner on an item that you're discussing a vote. Do I have that right, Josh? Sorry.
Sorry, just to make it slightly more complicated, it will depend on which alternate you're speaking with.
Oh, right,
so
right. It would, if it was your alternate, like.
Then it's okay.
Then
Exactly.
it's okay, because
Yeah.
that's me relaying where I would be with my alternate. It's because we wouldn't be sitting at the dais together. But if you're speaking to an alternate that is from an opposing, that's not a nice way of putting that, from one of our other jurisdictions, okay, I had to double back there.
A
But
different class of commissioner.
a
Sorry,
different
yeah.
class of commissioners, and you talk to an alternate from that group, you have just stopped from being able to talk to another commissioner, right?
That's correct,
Okay,
yes.
just making sure I had that right. Want to make sure.
So there
I'm
is
gonna-
an alternate for the county.
Yeah, so my
that-
alternate right now is Mindy Sotelo. I could talk to
Same
Mindy
as-
Sotelo, and I could talk to anybody on this
But
board.
B is also a commissioner from the county.
Right. B is a commissioner from the county. I could talk to B, and I could talk to Mindy. Tell me if I'm right or wrong here, because
Yes.
Mindy cannot sit here unless one of us is gone.
Correct.
So the
That's right.
3 of us could talk to each other,
Yes.
but the only reason that works is because one of us wouldn't be sitting here during a vote.
Correct.
Okay, just making sure I got that right.
But you and I couldn't talk together and then talk with an alternate, because that would be
Only my own alternate. I couldn't talk to
No,
your
even-
alternate
we-
and you.
or a public alternate. You might say,
Oh, yeah,
you know.
yeah. Do I have that right, Josh? Did I do that okay?
Yes,
we have a
but
chart
what
for
I
that,
think,
please?
the point was a good one, though. You know, you should assume your alternate is another commissioner. So if you talk to your alternate and a city member of the commission, that would be a problem, because that would be, 3 commissioners.
Gotcha. I see you. I see. Okay.
You know what I'm
Okay.
saying?
Painted. I just wanted to make sure, because this is an unusual situation when you're bringing alternates in to closed session items, that you want to make sure you understand what the Brown Act rules are now, because it limits us now. With the loss is that it limits us from being able to actually. It doesn't really limit us, but you take pause in who you're talking to on a topic of voting.
So what we have in the handbook, I don't have the handbook hard copy in front of me, and I can't seem to download it on my phone. I didn't bring my laptop. So I'm trying to look at the specifics. So what does it entail in the
You want to read that section, John?
yeah, just to kind of so that I know what I'm voting for in terms of that aspect.
I can do that. So says Brown Act exception. The Brown Act allows an exception from its requirements for the attendance of a majority of the members of the Board of Supervisors, any city council, or special district governing body at noticed meetings of the commission, provided that a majority of the members of the legislative body do not discuss amongst themselves, other than as part of the commission's scheduled meeting business of a specific nature that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of their respective agency. No person may disclose confidential information that has been acquired by being present in a closed session meeting authorized pursuant to the Brown Act to a person not entitled to receive it unless the commission authorizes disclosure of that confidential information.
All right, thank you, and thank you for the visual. And I see what was struck out, and I know why it was struck out, so I'm good with that.
Okay, I think we all got this.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Disqualification from participating. It said typically disqualified commissioners shall exit the hearing room. I just struck out typically because it should be the practice. And then clarifying what form needed to be filled out there, so that's not significant. Okay, so section G is a fairly significant addition, and it is a requirement to disclose if we are considering an application and if any commissioner has had communication with, say, the applicant. They need to disclose that when we are considering that application. So if you've had a conversation with Mr. Siwak outside of this meeting room, then you would need to disclose it at that when we're considering and exactly what was said. Is essentially what this comes down to, is so that there's transparency in what kind of communications have occurred between applicants and commissioners.
So if I had lunch with them several times and I gotta discuss what we discussed at those, and if we didn't discuss anything about his, I can say so.
Mm-hmm. Yep, you can say that.
Okay.
Can I clarify something on
Mhm.
that? Yeah. So, okay, I'm trying to pick a scenario where, as a board member, I've had conversations at a board level with my board hat on, but not as a commissioner. Do I have to still disclose that because they're an applicant and I was having a conversation with them with something that was going before the Board of Supervisors? I'm just trying to wrap my head around how this
Same
works.
comment.
Because now all of a sudden I feel like I have to have a diary.
No. Ex parte contacts include oral or written communications concerning applications that are subject to a public hearing. So it would have to be something that's specifically coming to LAFCO, would be what the communication would be about that you would have to report. So if you're having discussions about other things.
So, a developer wants to annex in to San Juan, and we have had conversations at a council level about this, knowing full well that he will put in a request for annexation to LAFCO. How does that work? So San Juan's is this big. There's somebody over here who wants to join in. And they come to a council meeting and say, I know I'm out of your jurisdiction, but I'm gonna go to LAFCO and ask if I can be annexed in. How does, and we've discussed this at a council level several times, or once. And then the paperwork comes through to LAFCO and says, and he says, I wanna annex into San Juan. And me as a council member already know that he's coming before here.
And that's all fine. What we're talking about are communications outside of a public meeting.
Outside of a
That
public
have not
meeting.
been
Okay.
That's what
documented
ex
and-
parte means, right?
Right.
Outside of the
The normal
public,
process.
yeah.
Mhm.
And that's where my question, 'cause so like, the annexation that the public speaker came about, approached me at a board meeting and saying, you know, I have this problem. I've talked to your CAO. Because it involves both the city and the county in the tax sharing agreement. And I'm hearing him, I hear what you're saying, but I'm not, it's just, so I'm not wearing either hat, I'm not in public, I'm just hearing what the individual's saying. I would have to disclose what was said.
Not in the meeting, but if you had a private conversation with him.
So if we had a conversation like, I feel this way and you should be doing this so that this can happen, that conversation I have to disclose. But if I'm just having someone, because I see how many people approach us, and there are so many conversations that I'm like, I didn't even know that was going to become a LAFCO item. You know, it just came all the way around full circle, and now I get why I'm sitting here. But to remember every one of those conversations, I just am concerned that I might break the rules, and I can't break rules. I'm not a rule breaker. If you remember it.
Well, see, now you're triggering, because he did come before the board, and he did express some
Yeah.
concern that he had, but we didn't act on it. It was just a public comment that he had made, making us
And
aware.
gave us letters. You see where I'm
Yes.
going?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Right.
my
But-
question was the
but-
letter, so if he sends a letter to you, you're not responding, but it comes to you, is that a communication, or is that just him sending a letter? You know, you're not conversing, so where's the line?
Yes, that's still considered communication, and I would recommend forwarding that prior to the meeting where we're going to be considering the application.
Yeah, because they gave us the history of how long they've been waiting and waiting.
Forward that letter to whom?
Forwarding it to who?
To me.
What if you
as
don't
part
have
of-
it anymore? Because, like he said, this has been going on for years. Like, what if this was from a couple years ago and
20
it's
years.
no longer in your possession?
Then
I
would-
have the one that just happened,
Once
so
upon a
I'll be
time, I got a
forwarding
letter.
that one.
We should have got that from the clerk, right? So the clerk should
That
have
one,
an
the
electronic
old
copy of that.
stuff, I mean, I have no idea.
Yeah.
It's the one he gave us here. I'll forward it.
Well, and I have a further wrinkle in this, just 'cause hypothetically, if a lawsuit ensues surrounding something and it becomes a privileged thing, then am I supposed to be talking about, you know what I mean? I'm not saying that happened or
Oh my
anything,
gosh, so that's where we're wearing LAFCO hats and not jurisdictional hats. So as a LAFCO member, if I have an island in San Juan Bautista, as a LAFCO member, my job is to not have islands in San Juan Bautista. So I vote, I say that I got a letter from so-and-so, but my job here is to vote for no islands. Where as I go back to my jurisdiction and it becomes an issue of whether it's
Right, I mean, but you're just disclosing that you got a communication. It's
Yeah.
not necessarily that you can or can't vote on something unless it's an issue. But my question is, if we're getting handed a packet with a letter as part of a lawsuit, that's not something I can disclose to LAFCO if it's
that's a closed session
privileged.
item.
So, any thoughts, Josh, on that?
That's a
Yeah, we certainly aren't intended for this to include any sort of, privileged communication you're having, with your city attorney or county council. And, I would defer to Jennifer,
with the-
I'd
with the
certainly add some
applicant.
language to the draft to clarify that.
The applicant actually, submitting a lawsuit and serving it on everyone with information. So even, it involves our city attorney, but we're all receiving it, so therefore, and he's still coming here before LAFCO. So it's kinda sketchy.
So attorney to jurisdiction to attorney before it comes before the full commission. It sounds like this is gonna have to go through LAFCO attorney from a jurisdictional perspective to see what we have to disclose or not.
So then do we have to have in the handbook or in the policy book not to include privileged communications as part of your jurisdictional responsibilities? Do we have to have something to that
We
effect?
can add something like that, and I think just the idea behind this is making your best effort to be transparent, particularly when it comes to conversations where somebody is trying to sway your vote, right? That's the concern. It's not administrative stuff. That's not the issue. It's if somebody comes to you and is like, look at all these wonderful things about this application that I have in front of you. Don't you think that you should vote this way? That's something that needs to be reported when you are making a decision, that you had that conversation. Does it need to be a documented journal of on this date and time? I had a conversation about tax sharing. No, I don't think it needs to go that far. I think it's just your best effort, right?
And
to
do
be
we
transparent.
have to, this is where the wording gets me, and I'm glad we're having this conversation, because this was exactly the spot where I was like, how does this get implemented? Because what I'm looking at is, okay, I'm sorry to always pick on you and me, but we have a tax sharing agreement, and this person comes to me and has a conversation with me about, well, you know, why won't you accept my petition, or why won't you finish and negotiate this tax sharing agreement? It's like, well, then I feel like I'm not going to tell the person what my concerns are. If I tell the person what my concerns are, then I have to disclose my concerns here, or just that I had the conversation?
I would say that you had the conversation and generally what it entailed.
And it entailed the concerns about the tax sharing agreement. But, I mean, do you see where it's...
So I
it's
think
just-
we can fairly say that everybody has disclosed that they've all had conversations with this person?
I can disclose that I've had a conversation with him. I've gotten a letter from him. I've gotten a phone call from him. He's very persistent on this, but that's all.
I got a question, Jennifer. Isn't all of this in the state code? Why do we have to, and if it is, why do we have to put it in our handbook?
I don't know that it is in state code. Is it, Josh?
No, it really isn't. This would be a policy that we would include, but it is a very common policy for LAFCOs.
I see the positiveness in this, in the transparency. It's the administering of it that's sticky, in my opinion, and that's my only concern is the yeah.
Did Josh, were you stating that it's not in the state code, so it should be put in our handbook? Is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is it is not in the state code, so we have the choice of including it in the handbook, and that's a policy decision for the commission. But it is common for LAFCOs to have an ex parte disclosure requirement.
But aren't we talking about the Browns Act?
The ex parte communication.
G, section G.
Yes or no?
No, this is section G about ex parte
Okay.
communications. So, yeah,
So I can add in some language about excluding privileged information, and then try to clarify exactly what type of communication that we're talking about. That it's not, if it's administrative in nature, something like dealing with the tax sharing agreement, that's not necessary, but any other communication trying to sway vote or something of that nature would need to be disclosed.
I would appreciate that if you guys are in agreement, just so that it's clear.
Now, I really would like to know what you had to say about it. Just kidding.
Call
Okay,
you later.
so you're adding a number 6 somewhere about, privilege, thank you.
And language that it's not administrative, type correspondence or communications.
If they've tried to sway you, you have to say, I had a meeting and they tried to sway me. I get it.
Okay, thank you.
By adding this, are we making ourselves more liable for a lawsuit or a possible lawsuit? Pardon? Okay, but we're being more transparent.
Yes, that's the
Okay,
key,
got it.
transparency.
And let's see here, page 10. I eliminated the development of unincorporated new communities. I don't know what that means, so I was unclear, so I just slashed that out. On the next page, page 11, did you have?
I can give an example. Chair. Yeah, that's why exactly what I did, and I went, that makes sense now.
But it's, that's not in LAFCO's
Yep.
purview, to form new unincorporated communities. You can form a district, you can develop, but it's not. Let's see here, page 11. The out-of-agency service extensions. This section of items, the powers and duties, a portion of it kind of applies to what we'll be talking about in the policies and procedures as well. So I tried to keep it a little light on the factors to be considered, like how an application would be processed. But I did want to add for the out-of-agency service connections clarification that all applications to extend services outside of a city or special district boundaries will be processed according to San Benito LAFCO policies for processing applications, which we'll determine in that set of policies and procedures. And then once again, that any factors for consideration and policies to guide review of the applications will be in that LAFCO policies for processing applications that we'll determine later. Spheres of influence, municipal service reviews. Nothing to add here. Oh, we're moving right along. Page 13. Commission position on proposed legislation. This is primarily, it's not legislative policies. This is primarily for when Cal LAFCO asks for a support letter from us and what should occur. Sometimes they'll say we need a support letter by next week, and we're not going to be having a commission meeting. So there needs to be a process by which I or the chair can sign a letter in support if Cal LAFCO asks for that letter of support. And this provides that process, and then at the next regular LAFCO meeting, I would include an item on the agenda to report back about that legislation, the proposed legislation.
Quick question on that one, Madam Chair. So Jennifer, if you report back, 'cause I'm looking at this from challenges that I think I've seen in my time, in this very short period of time, not from here, but my jurisdiction. And you come back, and then you find out that you don't have a majority of the board that would have supported that. What happens at that point? because I've seen it happen. I've had to deal with it, and unfortunately, it gets you in a sticky spot. But I totally understand the chair and the executive director should be able to make that determination when there's not enough time to bring it before the commission. But what happens? Or have you seen it happen?
I have not personally seen it happen, but I can tell you that from a CalAFCO perspective, they only recommend supporting of legislation that is beneficial to LAFCOs. So it goes through a vetting process by the legislative committee, CalAFCO's legislative committee, that's composed of several executive officers and consultants that they meet on a monthly basis, which I'm part of. So, and then they take a vote whether to support or not support whatever bill. Generally, when they ask for letters of support, those are on CalAFCO driven legislative efforts. For example, there was a huge effort at changing the protest threshold for LAFCO-initiated actions. So something like that they've gone through a 2-year effort to get this bill pushed through, then they call out for letters of support. So I can't imagine a circumstance where CalAFCO would ask for support on something that wasn't beneficial to LAFCOs as a whole.
Totally agree, and in my jurisdiction, it was completely different scenario. So, I see now why there's a vetting process. So that makes me feel better. Thank you.
Right. It's not just on my whim.
And I think this is a little less innocuous than it would be at a council or a board level. Yeah.
And once again, a reason to have the legislative policies in place as well that we would include in here eventually, so that would guide any of our decisions on whether to
The
support.
authority is included.
When you're going to CalAFCO's conferences, aren't you, or you as our executive officer, would know that some legislation is coming up before the state, and maybe that would either help us or not help us, so you would get our backing before you would vote on anything like that, wouldn't you? I mean, you would know how we felt, our board here.
Right. So I can certainly come back to you with a report on what legislation there is out there. I represent, when I'm sitting on the Ledge Committee, I'm actually a representative of the northern part of the state. So I'm representing my other LAFCOs when I'm on the Ledge Committee. So I would be making recommendations and voting based on that. Just because that's
But
what
you
the area
discussed that with
is in.
each one of your LAFCOs, that,
Generally not. The idea is I'm a representative chosen by them to make that vote. But they do have policies in place that help guide my votes when I do vote.
And I think that we as a commission choose the chair because
hopefully you know how we think.
yeah, because we respect that position to do the right thing,
Right.
and that's why the chair is the chair.
Not always.
Well, I think the chair should be voted like that. I don't know. See, sometimes it doesn't happen. I don't know.
Okay. So 14, nothing significant. except correcting dates and times of regular meetings and exceptions if there's a holiday, although I was trying to think in my mind when there would be a holiday on the second Thursday and could not come up with any. Maybe Christmas, but that's not the second Thursday, so I don't know. In any case, it's in there just in case, and if the date should ever change as to when you're holding your regular meetings, it's there. On the next page, page 15, really just it looks like a lot of changes, but it's just really aligning the agenda with how it's posted right now, and the content in order. Let's see here. And then typical agenda requirements. There's nothing irregular about any of the agenda requirements or the minutes, clarifying when minutes will be prepared and approved. Let's see, your quorum. This one, I wondered if there may be a need for something else here, and I don't know what leeway the commission has in outing a policy, but I do know that at some point in this last year you had an issue, or 2 years ago, when you didn't have an operating commission because there were only 2 of you, so you didn't have the ability to call a special meeting or whatever the case may be. Like, there was a significant issue with it being non-operational. So I don't know what the option is as far as policy-wise, what to do should it dip below quorum. And
Well,
maybe
at that time, we didn't even have a chair. We didn't have a executive officer, and the only thing, B and I sat down and went to council, and they indicated that we couldn't call a special meeting, but the way I read the code was that the chair and the majority of the commission, which B and I were the majority, so to me we had that power, and that's the way I read it. Though council disagreed because we didn't have a majority or a quorum, and I said it doesn't say anything about a quorum. It says that the chair and the majority of the commission can call a special meeting, and that's what we did. No, it wasn't. We didn't have a chair. It was just me and you. No.
So I don't know what our options
It was
are
frustrating,
to
yes.
prevent that from occurring again. So that might be something
I don't
for-
think you really have to, because with the code saying what it says the majority. If you only have 2 members, you're the majority.
Yes, I hear Josh wanting to chime in.
Yeah, apologies. Yeah, the issue is generally we can't have a meeting as it's defined in the Brown Act without a quorum. So I don't know all the facts of the prior situation, but generally if we had 3 vacancies and no alternates to fill those, I'm not sure what way we would have to call a meeting of LAFCO until we at least had a quorum.
Well, I guess you had an alternate, right? Do you remember who it was? I don't remember.
I don't remember either.
Maybe this is something just to think about, but maybe Josh and I
yeah,
can think about what an option might be in that case if you get stuck again to ensure that LAFCO operations continue in some manner. I don't know if it's,
Yeah, 'cause we're stagnant for 6
You,
months.
can you put wordage in there that if anything like that happens in the future to, do it? I thought we did it legal, but anyway.
yeah, we just need to ensure there's a
We got
quorum, so really
we're
we'd
going
wanna.
again, and we got a wonderful executive officer and a commission.
I think maybe where the issue was is if you didn't have commissioners that were appointed. So there was a period of time where you were without appointed commissioners that prevented you from having a quorum. So maybe there needs to be something in the process that, I don't know, about LAFCO sending notification to the cities and county that there's a need for commissioners or something like that, something along those lines. But let me think about it further. I just don't want you to be stuck in that position. I can't imagine that it would happen again, but
Well, the elections
never
were
know.
held in November, so we were hoping that by November we would have had a person to come in from the city's aspect, 'cause it was just the public person and then one supervisor that was sitting there. And that's what I think we were trying to do, is to get the cities to tell us who they were gonna, delegate and nominate as their LAFCO representative.
Angela was hoping you were voted in already. And Nina too, but we hadn't had the select committee vote who the voting members were gonna be on the city.
We had to wait for the municipalities to have their organizational meeting and assign and delegate the duties to you all.
well, I'll consider that and think about it a little bit more and talk with Josh if there's anything else that could have been done in that scenario. And maybe adding something here.
Well, I don't want this to hold up. I mean, we gotta get this done before the end of the year.
Yeah, so I'm aiming to get through the next few pages and then maybe we call it quits for here and then finish it at the June meeting going through it. And then not adopting at that time, but adopting at the August meeting. Particularly if there's any edits that you have from me at the June meeting, then I can incorporate them and then in August we can adopt the entire thing. Okay. So, let's see here. That was 16, 17. I added the Rosenberg's Rules of Order, just as the way in which parliamentary procedure would occur. It's relaxed process instead of Robert's Rules of Order. I don't know if you've heard of it, but just to define what parliamentary procedure is going to be followed. And then public comment periods. I clarified that speakers would be limited to 3 minutes, because it was not in here.
On that one, I know that at the board level, the chair has the discretion when you have a large number of public comments, to decrease the minutes from the 3 minutes to possibly 2, depending on the volume of public comments, but only the clerk would know how many people are gonna speak. Do we have that option included in here?
Yes, so the speakers would be limited to 3 minutes, and the chair or the commission by majority vote may further limit the time when appropriate.
So it's not the discretion of the chair, it's the majority vote, you just said.
It's either or, yeah.
And or gonna get us in trouble?
And then I included instructions for those participating virtually. For clarity, moving on, page 18, nothing was added. Page 19, the conflict of interest code. We're flying. The conflict of interest code does not need much in the way of updating, and that will take us to LAFCO budget and financial procedures. And I would recommend that maybe this is a good stopping place for now in our discussion.
At the end of 19?
At the LAFCO budget and financial procedures.
Okay. At
So
the end
that's
of page
page
20.
21.
Okay, start at 21.
Madam Chair, if I can just say, thank you for all this work, because I know this is not an easy process. I just really appreciate all the work that's been put into this.
Yeah, the time that you and the ad hoc committee have done, this is hugely appreciated.
Poor Jennifer couldn't get her ad hoc committee together. Either that or forget times. Anyway, thank you for putting up with us. But I think, if you don't mind, give us a phone call maybe 30 minutes before or something.
Mm-hmm.
Because I
can
don't
do that.
look at my emails sometimes every day.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay, so, were there any other questions about any of those pages we went over?
Are there any further discussions on any of that? I think we hit every point that we needed to during the conversation. Okay, so we're holding from page 21 on to the June meeting. And then bring all the changes back for August. Discussion and direction regarding an independent San Benito LAFCO website. It is 6:00. Does anybody have any place that they need to be? Do we need to continue this also?
you guys gonna have to update me. I don't know how to work a website.
I'm good to continue if you want to continue.
I am too.
Yeah.
Are
I
you?
think we're almost done.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can make it
Pretty short.
fast.
Perfect. Carry on.
Right, so what I'm looking for is discussion and then direction regarding whether the commission desires an independent San Benito LAFCO website. And the reason I bring this up is because right now the structure is very constrained to the county's look and organization, and I don't have control over what's there. I have to ask for something to be uploaded or positioned or whatever the case may be. So that being said, there's lots that would be great on the website, and I would like to have all of the MSRs and the district information and lots of maps, and it just it could be done within the constraints of the county system. It will just be quite an effort to work with the county, and will still be, right now when you open up the page, pretty much all you see is the county banner at the top, and
You have to dig literally for the LAFCO information.
yeah.
And I'm gonna chime in too. I'm sorry, Madam Chair, but you're listed, we are listed under departments, and that is the most misleading thing I've ever seen. I always thought we were completely, it was just cosb.us/LAFCO. And then when I did my little announcement video to get people to come, I don't know if you guys saw that, I was trying to promote us. I went onto the website and I was like, we're under departments. No wonder there's so much confusion. So I'm sorry, I'm going to say it. I'm really supportive of this.
I am too.
I am 3.
Yeah, I find myself getting lost on the county website all the time, just trying to find information about meetings, and so I'd love to have something that, I mean, you could still link from the county website, so people are looking, they can find the independent website, but yeah, absolutely.
So do you have staff that can design web pages and put one together? I know it's a skill that you have to have. I personally don't possess it. But do you have the staff and personnel to be able to do that?
So, what I'm recommending is there's a company, Streamline, that I'm sure many of you have heard of. They work an awful lot with special districts, so they know the requirements and state law about websites. Something else that was brought to my attention at this workshop I was just at was accessibility. So ADA compliance. It's really big, and I did not realize the special districts are getting hit with lawsuits for not being ADA or not having ADA accessible websites. So something we want to ensure, and Streamline does take care of that. The other thing that I like about their system is your PDFs are supposed to be ADA accessible as well, which we would have a lot of, but they've got a system where a person can request that it be ADA accessible, and then it gets transitioned into a compliant document, as opposed to having to go through and do all of them at once, not knowing what people are going to want. But on a request basis, they can make us compliant. So I spoke with a representative at Streamline, and the presentation is included in your packet. They're fairly reasonable in their prices. And I had also spoken with Vanessa about the possibility, so we can still use the agenda program hosted by the county, and then we'll just have a link to the Streamline website, the outside website. So it would still be functional. The pricing was the setup, and I was looking at classic setup would be $1,500, and that's for less than 200 pages, which obviously we will have. I can't imagine we have any more than 200 pages. And so that to me is really reasonable to get us up and running. And like I mentioned in the background, they do several other LAFCO websites, El Dorado, and I can't remember which other ones. Perhaps YOLO. I'll have to look. So they know the LAFCO world and what's necessary on a LAFCO website. And then from there, we would have a monthly membership of $500. And that would include all sorts of support. And the other thing that they've been good at is creating kind of outreach systems. So if you upload something new, you can just click email it, and it will disperse it to your entire email chain or whatever email list you've set up. So I think that's also a great way to do outreach. So anyways, there's that option. There is the option of using somebody other than Streamline. I asked also at the workshop somebody else that did independent website development. They did Santa Cruz's and San Diego's websites, LAFCO's websites. He estimated that for a basic web development, it would be in the range of $10,000. Yeah.
It's actually not bad.
It's really not. I'm not. I've done website design, and it's
So have I.
it's a lot of work, and so these are very reasonable. The monthly is a little high, but knowing what you can get out of it, I think, is where you're getting your bang for your buck, and that communication aspect is huge.
We're talking 1,500 versus 10,000.
For setup.
$500 a
then it's
month.
$500
Yeah,
a
and
month
then
after that. But
So for 10,000, that's all it is?
Yeah, that's not including your maintenance and what you have to do. And when it's a private entity, you're at the mercy of that individual from being able to do it. This, from my understanding, you have the ability to go in and do some very simplistic things that you update and maintain, so you're not going through a third party. I've worked with special districts on this with these, and they're very good to work with.
Yeah,
Streamline has a very good reputation.
Yeah, I'm all for Streamline.
Yeah.
I got a question. Does it make your workload less?
Well, at first it would make my workload more to go through a website redesign,
Okay.
design, and getting everything uploaded. But I think once
What about
it's
Vanessa's?
implemented, well, Vanessa wouldn't have to deal with me writing to her all the time saying, "Hey, can you upload this?" So it would probably reduce her workload a little bit.
And it would also reduce the cost from the county, which we're in the process of discussing. So, because Vanessa tracks her time, so anytime these updates happen, that's a charge from the county. So this would definitely remove some of those county costs, so there's an offset of savings.
And does this come up on my computer or my phone?
Both.
Both?
Should come up on both.
Mhm.
Perfect, okay. So I think it sounds like we're all in favor of Streamline and going with the 1,500 and the 500, 1,500, initial setup and the 500 for the Community Pro section.
I make a motion to, per your summary.
Thank you.
And a second.
Okay, a motion made by, Commissioner Curro and seconded by Commissioner Casey. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. 5-0. Thank you. Executive Officer Communication, announcements.
Just a couple of items. One, I was at that staff workshop that was held in Pleasanton a couple of weeks ago. It was really well done, some great sessions. One in particular was this website ADA accessibility, which I thought was particularly useful. And then another one about trust. So I thought that was also very interesting, just talking about, and I don't know if you've ever read it, but the speed of trust and the importance of trust at a LAFCO level in ensuring, cooperation versus collaboration versus coordination, right? And as trust goes up, you want to get to the level where you're at cooperation, right? As opposed to just collaboration. So I thought that was an interesting session. Otherwise, the MSR update. It continues to be almost done. However, I am now working with County GIS to put together a map of all extraterritorial service connections for the city of Hollister. It seemed to be an essential exhibit for the report because if we're going to talk about options, then we need to have that documented. So, and from there, we're on the cusp of being able to circulate it. So,
How many MSRs did you do or working on? 1, 2, 3?
well, it was the wastewater one, so it's the 2 cities and 3 special districts and the 2 CSAs.
And those were the longest, I know we have to do them, every 5 years? And we were way behind, right?
Way behind on some of them. 17 years for some of them.
So how long is it gonna take us to catch up?
Within 5 years.
Then you gotta start all over again.
Although the requirement is every 5 years or as needed. The idea being that you're updating the sphere of influence, but if nothing has changed or occurred in the last 5 years, the commission can say you can make that determination, and it would meet the requirements. So we'll see where we're at in 5 years. Some of them may have very well had significant changes, if you had reviewed the RCD 3 years ago versus where it's gonna be at hopefully in a year or two, it would be very different.
But that's one of your jobs is to keep us updated, right?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Thank you.
That's all I had.
That's it?
Mhm.
Okay, other questions? Perfect. Commissioner announcements and requests for future agenda items.
Is there any way that we can approach the hole that currently exists in terms of when a application is brought from the public, you know where the tax sharing agreement does not cover that? Is there any way we can push something forward? Because waiting for a couple of years for it to get done for that poor gentleman that came and spoke, again, I don't know him, but he did come to the Board of Supervisors and plead his case. And the words in his letter that touched my heart is they were saying they wanted to see this project come to fruition before he dies. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they've been waiting 20 years. So is there anything we as a LAFCO board can, I don't know, push, entice the agencies to get, because even the tax sharing agreement, that took decades to get ironed out between the city and the county. And as a supervisor, putting on my supervisor hat, I am not happy with the outcome of the split. 75 to the city and 25 to the county. However, at least there's an agreement that's in place. But with now that loophole and the people like that gentleman who want to bring an action on his own and not have to go through a municipality, he's kind of stuck where he has to wait for the city or the county to come together and figure out what he can do. So can we do anything administratively?
From a LAFCO level, no. And it would be up to the city and county to address that.
I heard
By
that.
either
yeah.
amending the agreement, by striking that section if you wanted to, or coming up with a new tax sharing agreement.
I'm trying to think of what to say. So the gist is that there is a tax sharing agreement in place right now.
Yes.
And the gentleman wants to move forward, and the city's fine with it, but the county is balking because they don't like the tax sharing agreement. So I think that's where the hiccup lies. So if you want to move it forward, gotta do
Yeah.
something.
I would just like to close that loophole, Madam Chair.
Thank
She
you.
knows
Okay.
what I was talking to, yeah.
I don't know if this is the right thing to bring up, but concerns me is LAFCO is all about districts. And a gentleman just got elected that, in my opinion, has destroyed that. And legally. I don't know if this body can do anything to change that or not.
Well, ideally is that, with the policies being updated comprehensively, that there's a framework in place to ensure that every commissioner that's on the commission has to play by the same rules, and that no one person can take over. So that's what needs to occur.
Madam Chair, I don't have a new item, but I would like to request, as a board member, a meeting with you and the CAO to discuss the item that's been brought forward, because it is something that we have been discussing and working on, and I'm not feeling like I'm getting very far. And I think one of the great things that you brought up again today is about that LAFCO also facilitates tax sharing agreements. So the executive officer, that's part of like a municipal, like a reviewer, and it's one of the things. So I'd really like to set that up if we could, and just have conversation, and it's more of an educational conversation because I'm not an expert in any of this area, so that's my only request at this time.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, we're good. Hang on, let me get to my page here. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Well, I'll second.
Who first did it? Motion by Commissioner Casey, seconded by Commissioner Curro.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a great night, everybody. Excellent meeting. Thanks for all the participation all around.